Hello, and welcome to another episode of the FemiNinja Project. And thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I have a fascinating, and really fascinating guest with me today. His name is Nate Zeleznick. I wanted to make sure I get it right. He is a true pioneer, distinguished as one of only two American master trainers of an ancient royal Indonesian energy and martial arts system. He masterfully integrates this unique next level practice with modern scientific methodologies and technologies through his creation of the integrated ascension method, also called I AM, and the white dove method. His groundbreaking work is renowned for enabling unparalleled personal development, and the results of his method has been validated by experts in the fields of medicine, naturopathy, optometry, physics, quantum physics, neuroscience, and consciousness research. Nate, that is quite an intro. Thank you so much for being here and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Cheryl. It's great to be here. And hello to everybody who's listening or watching right now. This is going to be a great show.
It is going to be a great show. So I'm just going to start by turning it over to you by telling us how you got to the point where you are right now. What was the launching pad? What got you into martial arts, and what started this incredible journey of what now is an incredible practice that you have that you are helping others just achieve unbelievable things.
Yeah. Well, this all goes back to when I was a young child here in northern Utah in a very small town.
Mm.
Now, my spiritual journey really started when I was about 12 years old, sitting on the floor of my father's basement office with a loaded rifle pointed at my head. And I was, if you can imagine this, going to school, first day of kindergarten and finding out that you're not of the quote unquote right religion, and having relentless bullying start and physical, mental, and emotional, and a lot of times torture by the other children, but also sometimes their parents, because when I was 8 years old, one of my scout leaders' wives told me I was going to burn in hell because I didn't go to their church. Now, that's a pretty heavy load for an 8-year-old to hear, right? So this happened and over and over, and I was just done. And so I was really thinking about ending it all. And then I had this really strong feeling. I like to say my higher self saved me from myself. I couldn't do that to my mom and dad. No matter
Mm.
what I was going through, I could not do that. I wasn't going to do that to them. So I unloaded my dad's rifle and I put it back away where he would never know that I moved it. And I went walking in the forest and just crying such a shame, feeling so ashamed that I'd even thought about doing that. But also, I knew that the bullying was just going to continue on. And so that night is when I had my very first out of body experience, and my consciousness left my body and I was free. I was actually hoping I was dead, truth be told. But obviously I wasn't. I came back into my body. And that's where I'll just say, my obsession with non local functions of consciousness, with neuroscience, with the out of body phenomenon. Later on, started studying more about the remote viewing phenomenon that was taught to our CIA agents, and I'm sure still is, about how to spy on other countries. Well,
Wow.
the thing about this is that I'd also seen Star Wars and I'd seen ninja movies, so I wanted to be a ninja and a Jedi, what I call the Ninjedi, because
Mhm.
it was in this current galaxy at this time, but with ninja powers as well as Jedi powers. And obviously, growing up in a small town, there's no access for anything like that. But when I was 23 years old, after having trained in the martial arts, after I could drive and I could go to a larger town, I started training. But in 1998, actually, I saw a VHS tape where it had Indonesian martial artists,
Mm.
which they were doing the most beautiful, most powerful, incredible martial arts I'd ever seen. And they were breaking not bricks and boards, they were breaking stacks of steel. They were
Mm.
breaking stacks of stone. And with a big smile on their face, just barely touching the stuff. And then it showed people who could literally see without their eyes. And I know that sounds crazy, but just like Luke Skywalker, where he's blocking the laser with his lightsaber. I was able to see on this tape military members who could shoot targets accurately while they're blindfolded, or drive cars through traffic. Just like, if you want to call Jakarta traffic normal, yeah, normal Jakarta traffic. We don't really have a much of a reference for traffic like that here in the States.
Mhm.
And then it had blind people who could read printed material. And I'm really skeptical. Like, no way. But I had also had so many out of body experiences and non-local functions of consciousness of that were undeniably real. I was
Mhm.
thinking to myself, maybe Jedis really are real. And I left it at
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
The next day, I watched a blind woman almost die in front of me trying to cross the street with her dog. And my spirit, somehow, it just said, you know what, Nate, here is your calling. This is what you need to do. Find those people to come and help her. And I
Mhm.
had never met a blind person, no blindness in my family. I just was drawn. I was really commanded to go and find those Indonesian people, and I did. And I brought them to America for the very first demonstrations of this art. Now, the art is called Merpati Putih, and that sounds strange in English, but in Indonesian, it means white dove. And this is
Mm.
the Indonesian royal family from Central Java for the past
Mm.
500 years. This, not just martial art, but this energy building, meditation, energy healing, and extrasensory or vibrational perception art was passed down from the king of Java to his heirs and then through the lineage until I was, in the 11th generation heirs. That was where the generation was when I first came across this. Then I brought them over here and I got to see blind people who could literally do anything you or I can do, even though they're completely blind. They stayed in my house. They drove my car around the neighborhood. They were able to do literally a lot of things that we can't, such as coming into my house, using their energy and their awareness to scan into my drawers and know where everything was. And they cooked us dinner as if they owned my house. They'd never set foot in my house before. It was just astounding to watch, Cheryl. And so what happened is, up until that point, they had never allowed a non Indonesian to learn. In
Mhm.
history, this was a cultural heritage for Indonesia. And even though their military, every branch, including their special forces, had been using this for over about 30 years, close to 30 years at this time, they did not allow anybody outside of Indonesia to learn it. But when they saw what I was willing to do, what I was going to sacrifice to bring this to America, the 11th generation heirs, they spoke to them with each other, and they let the chairman of Merpati Putih, who was right here in my house, they let him know we want Nate to become the first. And there just happened to be a former Special Forces soldier trainer living in Salt Lake City, an hour away. Of all the people in the whole country, there was one within an hour. And so I started training with him. And a little while later, one of my younger brothers joined me, and together we were able to advance through the ranks. We were able to bring the heirs, the royal family, these people, we brought them here to our house, and they personally tested us and inaugurated our school. And over the next 20 years, we went to Indonesia numerous times, ran through the jungles barefoot in the middle of the night, broke stacks of steel and iron and stone, and fought full contact, bare knuckles in sand pits, and did this blindfolded skill. It was just it was an amazing 2 decades for sure. We owned one of the largest martial arts schools in the country. And then in COVID times, which we all remember,
We're
well,
still trying to forget.
yeah, our academy was not able to survive that just because of the nature of our business. And over half the martial arts schools in the country closed
Mhm.
permanently. So we had to pivot, and we pivoted into a seminar format,
Mhm.
still teaching this breath work, but not the martial arts anymore. And then a couple of years ago, my brother and I decided we weren't really doing the very best for humanity that we could by still working together because we have very different visions. And
Mhm.
so I decided to strike out on my own and form the Integrated Ascension Method, or the IAM for short, which incorporates the White Dove Method, which is Merpati Putih. But then I add in things like vibroacoustic therapy and EEG brain training, for
Mhm.
the hereditary neuroscience. I also use pyramid scalar energy in the meditations, brainwave entrainment technology with sound, nutrition. I basically use the most amazing 21st century biohacking and really neuro-hacking techniques that there are that I can get a hold of right now, and I combine them with this 16th century wisdom.
Mhm.
So it's truly a unicorn system now. There's nothing else like it in the world. And so I prefer to work with elite athletes
Mhm.
and with CEOs, with people who are leaders who are able to influence millions of people below that
Mhm.
follow them, not below, but you know what I mean? They're their
Mhm.
followers
Mhm.
and they're influential people because that way I can help more people help themselves. Because when it
Mhm.
boils down to it, I'm just a Sherpa. I don't carry people on my back.
Mhm.
Nope. I'll help you carry your gear and I'll help point you the way up the mountain, but you have to walk it. And,
Mhm.
you know, being a martial artist yourself, you know, no one can earn your black belt for you.
Mhm.
Just doesn't happen. And
Mhm.
so now I have this opportunity to spread this love, to spread this amazing human technology combined with other human technology that's outside of us.
Mhm.
And it's a synergistic force multiplication. I'll put it that way. It's really amazing.
Well, it sounds amazing. It sounds, almost what am I thinking? Almost science fiction. I mean, it's just like way out there, but when you think about it, even going back to like the energy practice, because energy is something that we really didn't talk about that much, 20, 30, 40 years ago. What
Right.
is energy? It's the stuff that, makes your car go or puts the lights on. But as far as our personal energy and energy fields, I think we just, it was something that it was, kind of like woo woo or
Mhm.
out there, or, it's not real because it's not something we can touch and see, but it is something we could feel. So
Yes.
I'd like to know a little bit more about the energy practice,
Sure.
because I think a lot of us could use it right now.
Without a doubt. You know, it all starts with our breath.
Mm,
So the word prana means breath. Pneuma in Greek, breath. Qigong means literally breath work. So the practice of building our energy and harnessing this all starts with proper breathing. Now, a couple things about breathing that a lot of people are not aware of. First of all, we do it about 29,000 times a day.
mhm,
And yet, unless we're out of it, like we're out of breath, or we're
mhm,
sick, or we went someplace where it smells bad, we don't really pay attention to our breath very
mhm,
much. And yet it is the most vital biological process that is taking place in our body. You know, you can go 3 weeks without food, about 3 days without water. Try going 3 minutes without air. It's a
mhm,
very different story. And so when we step into breathing properly for our health, because there are ways to breathe that are healthier than others, and most people actually breathe in ways that cause disease. And about 200, well, over 200 different health conditions have been linked and attributed directly to improper breathing. So if we can breathe in a different way than what we're just doing by default to
mhm,
create a more electricity and a better immune system, more vitality in our life, we're going to have not just a better lifespan, we're going to have a better fun span and a better health span.
mhm,
And with the Merpati Putti system, there most people are familiar with I would say the two major kinds of breath work. The first one is the hyperventilation or the over oxygenation. Wim Hof is a great resource for that. Stanislav Grof is another really good one with holotropic breath. And then they have the deep, slow breathing, meditation breathing. And those are
mhm,
great. Merpati Putti is something truly unique in the fact that it is hypoxic, breath holding, maximum length, pulmonary hacking, where we are doing things that no other breathwork system I've ever seen does even close to. And we get results that are quite striking for most people.
mhm,
Where I'll tell you a quick story. A really good friend of mine, his name is Drew Brophy, and Drew lives in Southern California, and he is known as like one of the greatest surfboard artists in the world, but also one of the most famous big wave riders.
Mm.
And in 2021, Drew got COVID. He got COVID so bad that he was put on a ventilator, and
Oh, no.
yeah, he holds the world record for being on a ventilator the longest and recovering.
Mm.
70 days.
Mm.
He was on a vent for 70 days. The last 30 of it, he was in a medically induced coma, and he woke up paralyzed from the neck down.
Mhm.
He had to learn how to walk again. He had to learn how to use his hands. He went home with a ventilator, so he had to learn how to breathe again. And when I met Drew in Costa Rica in November 2022, it was about 10, no, it was actually 11 months after he got out of the hospital and he woke up. Well, he could walk up a few stairs, but then he had to rest. Now, that from somebody who was used to holding their breath for 3 minutes plus while getting hit by 50-foot waves, COVID took everything from him. And so I taught him just the very basic exercise in the integrated ascension method, the one that everybody who starts on this path or even gets an introduction, this is what they learn first. And in about 5 minutes, I went over because Drew was starting to get teary eyed. And I asked Drew, what happened to you? And he said, Nate, this is the best I've been able to breathe since I got sick. And the next day, we went down to the beach, and it was in Costa Rica. So, of
Mhm.
course, if you're near the beach, you must try surfing. At least I have felt I must try surfing,
Mhm.
especially with this guy and his wife, lifelong surfers. And that was the first time that Drew had been able to paddle out and catch waves since he got sick.
Wow.
So that's what the power of this. So if everybody out there, if you can just imagine whatever it is that you love to do the most, that is a passion for you, you would do it for free. If no matter what, this is just, it's your life. Now imagine almost dying and having that taken
Mhm.
away from you by a disease that you don't know if you will ever recover from. And now imagine if there was a way of breathing a very special way that
Mhm.
could help give your life back.
Mhm.
That's what this system does. And that's actually the results are typical. That's not a one-off. I mean,
Mhm.
I've had people who have had one person had a stroke, whole left side of their body paralyzed for over a decade. They got choked out in a Brazilian jiu-jitsu training match. Yeah, and it's through a stroke and there's a blood clot in his brain. So he was paralyzed in the left side of his body after the same exercise I taught Drew. Took about 5 minutes. He
Mhm.
started moving his hand and he raised his hand on Zoom and he's like, I don't understand what's happening here. I haven't been able to move my hand or feel anything for 10 years. And granted, was he doing jumping jacks and push-ups immediately? No. But the fact that it could actually promote neurogenesis in some way to the point where if you're paralyzed, if you're not paralyzed anymore. You notice this. This is it's like pregnant. You can either be pregnant or not pregnant. If
Mhm.
you're paralyzed, you're paralyzed, but
Mhm.
you can't be kind of paralyzed. I guess you can. I guess you can, but he wasn't. He was fully
Mhm.
paralyzed for the left side of his body. So things like that, Cheryl, that's really my objective. That's my mission. That's my passion. That's my purpose is to help people realize that they are their healer. They are the medicine. And we have these potentials, but most people just don't have the tool
Mhm.
to reconstruct their house. And that's what this does is in a non-denominational, non-religious, non-sectarian way, it helps people who have a body that is requisite. Okay, you have to have a body for this to work, but if you have a body, it will work. Is to help people gain that strength, that vitality, the virility for people who are struggling in that area. It's amazing there too. We all deserve to have an amazing, fulfilled, beautiful life.
Mhm. Mhm.
And we are constantly under bombardment from our food, our water, our air, air waves. And by that I mean like 5G frequencies,
Mhm.
but also our own minds. That's why
Mhm.
social media is so detrimental for young people and old people too.
Mhm.
It's very addictive, but it's also negative.
Mhm.
And we break each other, not each other, but we break our own bodies down with the
Right.
chemicals we produce. So, learning how to not just survive through this change that's happening in the world and in
Mhm.
society, religiously, and every other thing, but also thrive through it. That's
Mhm.
the driving force of my business.
Mhm. Well, I always say that the body has an incredible capacity to heal itself as long as we give it the right environment and the right tools to do so. And another reason why I find this exceptionally fascinating, I told you before we started recording that I am a recovering physical therapist. So, I've got that background. But what I didn't tell you is that I am a former respiratory therapist. That was actually my first
Mm,
career. So I spent 20 years as a respiratory therapist. So thinking of this surfer, this healthy, vibrant man on a ventilator for 70 days actually just, gave me chills.
yeah.
And the fact that I think in our society, and especially in Western medicine, and I'm not trying to knock it because, I've had 40 years experience in the medical field, but we do everything artificially. I mean, of course, we had to help our patients breathe if they couldn't. So, of course, artificial ventilation, and it even goes into like some of the medications. It's like, oh, this is a problem. You're having this ache and pain. Okay, take this medication. Oh, you're having side effects? I
Mhm,
have a pill
mhm.
for the side effects. And all of a sudden, we're chemistry sets or more like chemistry experiments. So it's just when you think that all of this can be reversed by something that is so simple, that is a physiological gift that we've been given, and we started it from the minute we were born and took that first breath, how much we can heal from breathing properly. And it's more than just the oxygen exchange. It's just the impact that
Yes.
it has on our neurological system, taking us back from the fight or flight into the parasympathetic state. I mean, it makes so much sense.
Absolutely, it does, and that's the thing with breath, it's the first thing we do when we're born, it's the last thing we do
Hmm.
as we change our address, as I like to say, and yet we don't focus on it very much during this time where we actually are here, and it's one of the most accessible, easy things to do. I mean, even okay, so some yogis have been able to demonstrate that they could actually slow their heartbeat, they could slow their
Hmm.
digestion, they could modulate their immune response. But everybody, from the moment you're born, knows how to hold your breath. Babies are born underwater. They know how to hold their breath.
Hmm.
We know how to do this, but it's doing it properly for our own health. And just like, you know, a lot of people go and they get a cancer diagnosis and it's like stage 4 and they had no idea. How could you not notice this in your own body? Because your body is doing it to itself, right?
Hmm.
A lot of the time we're not very good at diagnosing our own self and what's going on with us. And so when it comes down to our breath though, we can all tell when we just walked up a flight of stairs and we're out of breath, we're huffing and puffing. We can tell if we're having an asthma attack. If like my girlfriend, she's allergic to wasps.
Oh.
She has an EpiPen with her at all time too, in fact, because if she gets stung within 2 minutes, her airway is closed off. So she knows what it's like not to be able to breathe. And that's the thing. All things, well, have some kind of instinct. Humans, we come in with very few. We only have
Yeah, right.
fear, falling and loud noises. Those are about the only two things that babies are intrinsically afraid of. But everything, whether it's plant or animal, has a fear of not being able to respire. Our amygdala for us goes absolutely crazy, right? And we've got
Hmm.
carbon dioxide and oxygen sensors in our brain that tell us if we have the proper mix of gases. And as a former respiratory therapist, you'll understand with the Virgo Bohr effect and with the hyperventilation syndrome that
Hmm.
the more you breathe, the worse it is for you a
Hmm.
lot of the time. So, if somebody's having a panic attack and hyperventilating, if you give them a paper bag, if they're an enemy, you might consider a plastic bag. But, as we recycle that air that back into our body and we get that carbon dioxide, it helps calm the autonomic nervous system down. Well, the integrated ascension method helps people do that with a supercharger. It's more than just holding your breath. It's a combination of holding your breath, but also doing different pressurization locks
Hmm.
with your diaphragm, which we can all do, but there is a protocol to do it safely. And then we have not just mudras, which is in our hands, where we're connecting different circuits in our hands with the fingertips, but we do full body mudras, meaning our whole body moves in certain ways to allow the energies to flow through our body by basically aligning the wires properly in our house. And
Hmm.
when we combine those together, what it does is it allows us to build this biomagnetism, this chi,
Mhm.
faster than anything I've ever seen. And you notice it right away. It's like almost immediately,
Mhm.
I now feel different. I now feel better. And so that's why when people ask me, how often do I have to do the practice? Which only takes about 5 to 10 minutes a day.
Mhm. Right.
And I'm like, you only do it on the days you want to feel awesome.
Mhm.
If you don't, if you want to feel normal or like crap, don't do it. But if you want to feel great, give yourself that 5 to 10. You're
Mhm.
worth it. It's not, I won't say it's easy, but I will say that it is rewarding
Mhm.
to do this practice.
Well, let me ask you about that then. When you say it's not easy, do you mean it's difficult to? I mean, if we can do this in only 3 to 5 minutes, is it a difficult technique to learn?
No, no, it's really not that difficult to learn. Well, okay, so with that in mind, Cheryl,
Uh huh.
the initial technique that I taught Drew, the surfer, and thousands of others, that is pretty quick to learn. The entire Merpati Putti system,
Ah.
energy wise, breath wise, uh, complexity wise, it's kind of like looking at an IKEA manual for a desk. And yeah, that's pretty, you can figure it out.
Mhm.
That's that. The whole system is like the space station manual. It is really the ultimate respiratory and energetic biohacking system in
Mhm.
the world that it's incredible. It's like anything else that I've ever seen. All of the manuals and the people that I've spoken with, when they say this is all there is to it, I'm like, wow, that's amazing. Then I look at the things that I've learned over the past decades from all these masters, and I'm like, whoa, this is too much for anybody to actually do in a full lifetime. If
Gotcha.
that's all you did. But that said, what that does is that it allows me to work with people where they are and
Mm.
give them techniques and give them practices that are custom tailored to them and suitable for what they need.
Mhm.
Not everybody needs the same thing. So to be able to have that, if you will, a pharmacopoeia
Mm.
of
Mhm.
what you need. But the only thing is, the only side effects, which are really direct effects, are you feel amazing, your body gets healthier and it feels younger, and you feel more empowered and you're calmer. So
I
I
like
like
those
this.
side
Me
effects.
too. Yeah. The direct effects are amazing.
Mhm. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So, I have to, okay, full disclosure here. I have to admit that I used to think, stuff like that was kind of like silly. Again, you have to remember my background, medically trained, Western medically trained respiratory therapist for 20 years. And just, get the air in, get the air out, let the oxygenation happen and the gas exchange and blah, blah, blah. So it wasn't until after I had actually had a pretty traumatic event and started looking into a lot of different alternative type of healing modalities that I finally discovered the power of the breath and the power of breathing, not just from the physiological gas exchange type of thing, but from the neurological standpoint. And I remember one time, I was using these, they call them these miracle balls. You put them under different parts of your body and you do this particular breathing with the S breathing. And I was driving home from work one day and I was starting to I could feel myself starting to ratchet up. And once I start ratcheting up, man, that's not good. And it was like, oh, if only I could get my miracle balls out, but I can't, get in the middle of the street and put the miracle balls and, try the breathing. I did just like 3 or 4 S breaths. And all of a sudden I could just immediately feel my nervous system just switch over from the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight, into the parasympathetic state. And it was like, I think I've been missing out all these years and, by not paying more attention to the breath. So it's pretty amazing stuff.
And that's the thing is we just do it on autopilot. We are
Mhm.
unconscious of so many things that are happening. Neurologically, a friend of mine is one of the top, well, he's one of the most renowned neuroscientists in the world. He's done
Wow.
thousands of EEG brain scans. He's spoken on those stages with many of the most famous and most well-known meditation and human potential coaches in the world. And I asked him, I said, Dr. Jeff, how fast is the brain? And he said, well, the left side of your brain, it can compute about 40 to 50 bits of information per second. And I said, what about the other side? He said 40 to 50 billion bits of information per second. So the right side, the subconscious, is doing at least a billion functions per second more than our conscious thinking brain. And why that's relevant is that we have all these different processes that are happening for our immune system, our blood, balance, pressure receptors. We have all these things going on that it's really good that we don't have to think about them, right? And it's great that we've got a part of our consciousness in our brain that is taking care of that for us and taking that information in, doing what needs to be done so that we can actually live a life and have experience instead of this experience of trying to monitor all these things, which we couldn't possibly do. Why that really is pertinent to us when it comes down to spiritual things or mystical experiences, things that are beyond the normal five senses and beyond what we think are normal, is that, for instance, the ancient Egyptians, they said that we have 360 senses, and that's what they would train their children to use. Not five, 360. What have we forgotten in the past 5 or 6,000 years? I mean, they had electricity, they had light bulbs, they built the pyramids, which we still could not do with our equipment nowadays. They had a complete language that we forgot. We don't know what they sounded like exactly. They had all these, they did brain surgery, for God's sakes, and successfully. So they were able to do these things in these ancient lost civilizations that we don't know where we can do now, but we don't know how they did it. Well, what else were they able to do that we think of now when we say, oh, that's impossible? That's why I'm a big fan of taking impossible and turning it into I'm possible. And with the integrated ascension method, that's what it's for, is to help people find out what is really possible for them. Maybe it's seeing without their eyes, which that's a very rare skill that not many people can actually do well. But what about energetic healing? What about staying calm? Just that alone, staying calm in the face of conflict or contrast or just your own stressful thoughts where you're starting to ratchet up, right? And being able to then bring your whole system back into balance and homeostasis. That is a superpower. That is a superpower. And here's why. I've had numerous medical doctors and naturopaths, chiropractors tell me exactly this. All disease is caused by stress. All of it. We're fighting off billions of pathogens a day if we have a properly functioning immune system, but we can also make ourselves sick through the chemicals of stress. That also means that we could make ourselves well again through the chemicals of oxytocin and vasopressin and serotonin and these wonderful building chemicals, right? But a lot of people, unfortunately, Cheryl, think that they are not able to control these things. And through the work of Joe Dispenza and many other researchers, finding out, yeah, we can. And through what I offer, absolutely, yes, you can. It does come down to, are you willing to do the work?
And don't you think sometimes that people might think it's more palatable, or just because it would be easier or faster to take the pill or to do other things that are more, like traditionally accepted, let's just say, in our society?
Sure. And that's normal. That's a normal thing right now, is because ever since, the 1940s and 50s, when medicine started pushing these pills and ointments, that the natural ways of doing things have kind of fallen to the wayside for most of society. That said, there's a resurgence now because the number 2 cause of death in the United States is iatrogenic death. That's death by medicine. So either malpractice or prescriptions. I mean, we lost 103,000 people just to opioid overdoses last year.
It's just so sad.
Now, granted, a lot were, I'm sure, fentanyl and illegal heroin and whatnot, but it also came from the oxycodone, OxyContin, these lower tabs. And the thing is that we really need to have our own agency for our own health. And granted, to believe the diagnosis of a doctor who has done a scan on you, that's one thing. Just don't believe their prognosis. There have been too many people who have been paralyzed that They said you'll never walk again, and they're walking. I happen to know one.
Mhm.
A lot of people, you have 3 months to live. 10 years later, they're still alive.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it's not that they have power over you. They're just doing the best they can to tell you what to expect based upon their experience and their own training.
Mhm.
But you are unique. No one else is you. That means that what is the quote unquote norm? Maybe you're on the other end of the bell curve and you're the
Mhm.
exception to the rule. As long as you bring those hopeful, beautiful, healing chemicals into your awareness by
Mhm.
feeling, not just thinking, but feeling, which is a faster form of thought,
Mhm.
into your body, you're going to be doing some amazing, I'll just call it healing judo on
Oh,
all of
I love that. Healing
cells.
judo.
Yeah. And because that's the gentle way, right?
Mhm.
It doesn't look like it, but that is the name of it, is the gentle
Mhm.
way for yourself.
Mhm.
And that's an important thing for us to realize, that we need to be our own health advocates and agents,
Mhm.
and not just abdicate all of that responsibility onto the people in the white coats with the prescription pad. That doesn't mean don't take the prescriptions, but it
Mhm.
also means that you can make yourself well just as much as you can make yourself sick. And we
Mhm.
know the CDC website says over 90% of all disease is caused by stress.
Wow.
And that's staggering if you think about it.
It is staggering. And, I just keep going back to, I told you before that my father was from Eastern Europe, and just some of the remedies that my grandmother would use, you know, I mean, he was raised on a farm for the first 12
Yeah.
years of his life. And even my mother was born here in the United States, but her family was from Yugoslavia. So, and the neighborhood that they lived in too, everybody was from somewhere else. And a lot of what they did, the remedies were all just, natural healing. And, they didn't have the kind of medications or the technology that we have today, but somehow they managed.
Hmm. Yes. Well, that's an interesting thing, though, that we're living longer than we ever have before.
Hmm.
Maybe it's all the preservatives in the food. They're preserving us. I don't think
Right?
so. But, we actually have much better healthcare than we had, say, 100 years ago, for sure.
Mhm, mhm,
That said, we also have chronic disease that is an absolute epidemic in this country,
mhm,
where over 60% of people now have some kind of chronic disease. Over half the population in the US is obese or morbidly obese. And what is it, like 1 in 34 people have autism, and it
mhm,
used to be 1 in 100,000 or something like that, like 50 years ago. It's gone up significantly. Asthma has gone up by 50% in between 2005 and 2019 in children, because the air is poisonous. I mean,
mhm,
whether somebody believes in climate change or not is irrespective of the
mhm,
fact that if you burn plastic, it goes into the air, you breathe that plastic, you don't breathe
mhm,
as good.
mhm,
That's just the way it is. And we keep doing this and polluting this planet. So whether it warms up or not, okay, that's fine. You can take your poison hot or you can take it cold, but you're
mhm,
still being poisoned. And
mhm,
so that's why I'm a huge advocate for natural foods and
mhm,
trying our very best to not make that. It's not even a carbon imprint. It's more than that. It's just trying not to contribute as much as little as possible
mhm,
to the destruction and the pollution of the planet.
mhm,
I mean, there's like way off. Like will live off grid and only I will use nothing that is manufactured. Okay, that's fine. That's
mhm,
hard to do. I guess it would be possible, but then there's also the majority of people who just throw things away indiscriminately and just don't care because it's not there anymore.
mhm.
Well, it's somewhere. And you can only, I guess, poop in the fishbowl long enough before all the fish die, you know?
Right? Yeah, it used to blow me away. I actually ran my own physical therapy practice for 18 years, and it was a non-traditional, practice. And I was so amazed. I always had bottled water just in case, somebody forgot their water bottle or they needed something and, forgot I didn't want them going to the water fountain as a healthy germaphobe. It's like, ooh, who would do that?
Mhm.
But I was amazed. I had a small group of clients who would the first thing they would do, they'd walk into my office and they would grab a water bottle and they would drink it and that was fine. And then they would just throw it in the trash on the way out. And a lot of these people were very much, pro environment and, the climate change and it's killing us, and I'm like, what are you doing to help the problem? Of course I would collect
Yeah.
all the bottles and take them to the recycling plant, but it was just like, you know it was really the level of self-awareness that was missing was just mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, and that's a human nature thing right
Hmm.
there, that,
Hmm.
um, a lot of times we don't change until things get so bad we can't do anything but change,
Hmm.
that we have to. And the change, pain is a very good catalyst for change. It's not the fun catalyst, but that seems to be the way that a lot of humanity learns is through pain. And so when it comes down to, say, breath technology,
Hmm.
not being able to breathe, that's
Hmm.
not a fun that's not a fun experience. It's really
No.
not. Uh, how many people did get COVID? A lot of people did pass on. A lot of people did get very, very sick with it, and they have these long haul symptoms.
Mhm.
I don't believe, no, at least I have not heard of any allopathic physicians recommending any kind of breath work for their patients that have long COVID.
Mhm.
Why not? I mean, that should be the first line of defense because that's what's being affected is the breath. So why not do that in a
Mhm.
way where uh, you know you can walk? Walking is healthy for you,
Mhm.
but sometimes you better do some CrossFit and build your muscles and your tendons, your ligaments, and your ability to actually work. That's what the integrated ascension method is. It's essentially the CrossFit of breath work. Now you can't do
Nice.
CrossFit all the time.
Right.
CrossFit, you'll overtrain, you'll blow your knees out. You're not going to be able to do it all the time. But done for short periods of time,
Mhm.
just look at CrossFitters, for God's sakes. Look at them. CrossFit works,
Mhm.
right? But nobody can do it all the time. And that's the same thing with the integrated ascension method. It's 5 to 10 minutes a day, every single day, to feel like you are really progressing in your respiratory CrossFit. And that's
Mhm.
what it is. Essentially, I just kind of thought that up on this like
That
right
was
now.
brilliant.
It
Brilliant.
is.
And it
It's,
happened right here on my show.
yes,
I love
it's
that.
yeah, it's the CrossFit of breathwork.
So, and I love the fact that you said, pain is what really facilitates change. You have to have the pain. And I always say that pain is a powerful teacher because
Yes,
it's one that you really can't ignore
yes.
and you can really learn a lot from it. So, I just want to salute you for that. It's just, yeah. So go ahead.
And it's yes, pain supersedes everything else too.
Mhm.
If you think about it, we've got all these receptors like the 360 senses, right? So obviously we have our basic five, but then
Mhm.
we have, heat receptors, cold receptors, pressure receptors, balance receptors. We have proprioceptors that tell us where we are. We have chemoreceptors. We also have magnetoreceptors in our body that when we can, if you ever walked under high voltage lines or been near electricity and you're like, well, you can feel it. Um,
Mhm.
but we also have nociceptors, which are pain receptors,
Mhm.
and they trump all the other ones. So
Mhm.
that's a survival mechanism. So that's a good observation.
Okay, well, now, Nate, I have a question for you. I want you to tell us about your offer. You have a free ebook titled Awakening Transformation, and you also offer a free class. Is this true? Or did
Yes.
I? Okay, good.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's both. It's both. So my website that everybody out there, you can remember this. It's iampure.energy. Because yes, you are. You are pure energy. So iampure.energy. And when you go there, you'll have the opportunity to get that free ebook, which is a lot of my story and also some great techniques on how you can start to change your breath right now, feel healthier in just literally a couple minutes.
Okay,
But then
I
also I have, sure.
I want to interrupt you, and I apologize for that, but I couldn't help myself when you said that you would hear more of your story, and
Mm,
so I want the listeners to know, man. Nate has one heck of a story, and it is very extensive. I mean, the things that he has done is just absolutely mind-boggling. So, really, get the book not only to learn some of the techniques, but to hear his story and I mean, your personal transformation is just truly remarkable and quite an inspiration.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Cheryl. And yes, everyone, enjoy the book. And then I also have a gift, a class for you. This is an energy shielding. So it's really about shielding yourself mentally from the negative emotions. And well, we're around other people. That's just part of it. And not everybody is as happy go lucky, as positive and cheery as we are. And sometimes for people who are empathic and they feel really deeply what other people are feeling, this is for you. And then it has a perfect breath tutorial on there, which
Mhm.
we do have a perfect way of breathing for the body, which I'm sure as respiratory therapist, you would know this, that 5.5 seconds in and 5.5 seconds out has been shown to move us into homeostasis in the autonomic nervous
Mhm.
system faster than any other breath, cadence, or rhythm. Now, this actually leads you through how to do this, and it
Mhm.
actually has the timer on there so that you can actually do it, and it'll just take 3 or 4 minutes and you'll feel amazing. So at my website, I am pure.energy. You can get both of those things right there. And I look forward to hearing from everybody out there how you like it. Please make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel, we got Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube, all the things, all the places, because it's all about how can we be the very best for us as we possibly can, and that's why I have these programs. And then I have
Mhm.
all kinds of online programs. People who would like to travel, going to be offering a very exclusive Costa Rica event next
Mhm.
April. It's already set, already ready to go. So
Mhm.
anybody who's interested in that, you just look under the events on the page and you can go ahead and apply to be one of the 20 people who get to come to Costa Rica and learn from me personally.
Mhm. And all of these links definitely are in the show notes. They're going to be there forever and ever and ever. So if you can't find Nate, you're not looking. And some of the social media, I've already looked at it. It's, it's really great. You do a great job. I'm very impressed.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you very much. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here. And everybody out there, I hope that you are having a wonderful now and a wonderful night or day or morning on purpose. This life there's no redos.
Mm.
So make it amazing.
Thank you so much for that, Nate, because I was going to ask you if you had any final pearls of wisdom for the listeners, but you just beat me to the punch. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom and, dare I say, your energy with us.
My pleasure. It's my honor. However I can serve, I'm here for you. So just let me know.
Okie dokie. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. Please share this episode with everybody you know. I honestly believe that we can make the world a better place by doing a number of different things, sharing our stories, talking to each other, being open minded, and getting ourselves as healthy as we possibly can. And I know we can do that. So do go to Nate's website, check out the free book as well as the free class that he has to offer and reach out to him. I know he would love to hear from you and tell him that you heard about him from the FemiNinja Project. So pay attention to your breathing, take care of yourself, and yeah, be healthy, be happy, and that is the way of the FemiNinja.